No. Go.
Welcome to Her Voice Unleashed. We are dedicated to restoring balance in the world by empowering women to stand up, speak out, and go for what they want in life. I am Nikita Sharma, certified personal trainer, and here with me is...
I am Amita Kumar, physician and life coach, and together we're breaking through societal norms, stereotypes, and guiding you through nurturing your mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. But as you know, I am a doctor, not your doctor, but that's why I pulled in the medical word there.
Medical, yeah.
Today's episode. All right. Unlearning society's expectations. So this is about carving your own path. And I think both of us have some experience here. I'm sure many of our listeners have some experience here. Let's just jump right in. Tell us about your path and how you decided, when did you decide? How did you decide to get away from what society's expectations were?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me, it was more about my parents, because growing up, my parents were very much so like overbearing, helicopter, like you must do this. And I know they wanted me to have a good future and all that kind of stuff. And I want to have a good future as well. But the means of it was quite different. So I think it was really around after I graduated university. Like my dad wanted me to go into engineering or sciences. So I did that. And I was like, okay, but I was like, always like took what he said and said, let me find a middle ground to make it me. Because I think just I knew deep down if I didn't, I would resent him, and I don't want to live my life with regrets. So I went through the sciences industry, working 2 years, but it was really when I started to do work, and I was just like really felt unhappy in that field. And I was like, what is it? Like, am I depressed? Am I this? Am I this? But I just truly wasn't happy doing what I was doing. And then I needed to take that reflection time and be like, okay, why? But why am I not happy? And to me, I wanted to do work that was fulfilling, that created impact, that I could use my gifts like creativity, being social, things like that. And it just was not it. So I really got into fitness at that time, like hardcore, and working in that field checked off all the boxes, but it was something my parents did not want me to do. And if it was, they wanted me to go to school, like be a physiotherapist or something like that. Something that had like stature and reputability. So they were super not happy when I was like threw away in their mind 6 years of university to go become in their eyes, like a lowly personal trainer in a gym. And and like, I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit of a shot to my ego as well, but I was so happy doing it. And I was like, I feel like I'm in the right place and I don't know what's gonna happen from it. But so taking that stand like against them was really difficult. And only in the last, like I'm pretty much 35 now, only in the last 2-3 years have they really come around. And but there were times like my dad threatened to disown me, and like he was like, you have to do what I say or you're never going to be allowed in the house again. And in my head I'm like, okay, well
why do you think that they said that? Like, I'm sure you've done some thought work on this.
Fear tactic, right? Like I see it as like, you must love me a lot to like need to go to that extreme to say something like that, because you want to scare me so bad that you want me not to do this thing.
But why were they so scared?
Never in their wheelhouse. Like they had no idea like what that industry would be like.
Yeah.
They just
really from their own fears, they were like, scared because did your parents, were they born in India?
Yes.
Yeah. So like lots of immigrant parents, like we only know, I'm not an immigrant parent. I was born in Canada, but my parents, like, our culture only knows like professional careers. And anything that's not a professional career is like unknown. And then the unknown is super scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my father, who's the oldest of the oldest of the oldest, like multiple generations, you know, did not go into medicine. And that was like a huge thing. He still talks about it. And it was scary for him to be an entrepreneur. I mean, now it's been 45 years. But his parents supported him. They just weren't really sure what they were supporting. They were like hoping he'd succeed, but they weren't really sure, you know? And I think that once you realize that they're not like, parents aren't trying to torture you. Now that I have my own teenage children, you know, like it's not like I'm trying to torture my children. It's like what I think is best for them. But we definitely, as parents, probably most parents, forget that maybe our kids know what's best for them too. And I got to give a shout out to a doctor coach I know. She's a pediatrician, Hope Seidel. She told me, I mean, they have some confidence to know what's best for them, and they can only have confidence if you have confidence. So I think like it's similar to a lot of things, right? Like just why does society want us, let's just say women, for example, because I can't speak for men. I know they have their own set of societal expectations. Why does society like do that to us? I mean, what do you think? Or why do they paint this picture of who we're supposed to be?
I don't know. Maybe it works for the old model, and
Yeah.
that's the way things have always been done. But, you know, like that's what breaking the societal norm is. Like society changes and evolves. I think fundamentally and value-wise, it should be or is the same in order to succeed, right? Like,
yeah, I think,
family unit, community, etc.
yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point, which is like I don't think that we actually plan to question norms. Like they just kind of come about like when there's maybe even panic. Like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. You're suppressing me, oppressing me. Like, why can't, like the whole, you know, feminist movement or whatever. I mean, I wasn't there for that. Thank God somebody did it. But also like it was from actual suppression and oppression, right? But now that we're not technically suppressed or, you know, being oppressed, we can still challenge what the norms are. I mean, that's how women decided to go to medical school, right? Like at some point there was no women in school. Forget about medical school.
Yeah.
There was no girls that got educated. Or in fact, the other day I was just telling my daughter about how many girls don't get to go to school because they have 7 days of period and they have to miss school for a week every month. Well, how are you supposed to succeed?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to learn?
Yeah.
Right? Like the class doesn't stop for the girls. And so just like an interesting thought, like, oh, maybe we could make this better for them instead of just being like, oh, guess you have to stay home for the next 7 days, you know, like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know this is like a big topic and we only have 15 minutes, but I mean, tell me more about like, even in the bodybuilding or fitness arena, forget about bodybuilding. In the fitness arena, you're not normal, are you?
Well, I think
Or it's
being an Indian
Yeah.
woman in the fitness industry and especially in bodybuilding, like when
Yeah.
I thought, like when I invited my parents to my first show and I was like, well, I'm going to be on stage, kind of bent over, spreading my cheeks in a swimsuit, basically. Like, that's not, I don't think that's what they pictured. That's never what I pictured, but it's different, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No,
And they were
but
extremely supportive after the
yeah.
fact that like they saw I knew what I was doing and okay, like they were like, damn, she's actually really good at this. So yeah, it is different, but I also think that's why a lot of women like relate to me because they are like, oh, you know, a woman like me kind of doing
Yes.
what I need help with, and they can relate to a lot of things. So definitely is hard at times, but like you said, it's a different world now, and women have new opportunities, and I think it really does come down to like believing in yourself and having the support network there. So yeah.
So did you always believe in yourself, or were you like unsure too sometimes?
No, like,
That's a loaded question.
no, yeah. Like I grew up very insecure, very self-conscious, and bullying, family, like crazy family life. And I had to build it up over time. I had to build it up. The gym, crazy enough, was where I started to do it, like starting to lift heavier weights, where I was like, oh, damn, like I did that. And then walking out being like, yeah, I'm amazing. And then that would slowly spill into other areas of my life. I'm like, well, what else can I do? Like, where else am I holding myself back? And then just the risks became bigger and bigger. And now I'm learning to take more calculated risks, which is great.
Yeah, no, I mean, and also like sometimes I mean, at the risk of sounding a little cliche, but we are apologetic about it as women. We are like not great at owning our successes. I mean, I'm definitely not great at it either. I chalk it up to luck sometimes, like, and I still sometimes I'm like, I got lucky, because I think there is some portion of it that is luck, but I definitely do not talk about, I know it's not, I'm talking about mental success in a way, right, versus physical success. So it's a little different to measure it. But I'm like, I mean, I literally told my husband like a couple of years ago, like, I only passed that exam because I got lucky. And he was like, you mean you passed like every exam because you got lucky? Really? Like, come on. And you're like, okay, maybe I did put in lots of hard work, and maybe I don't have to, maybe I should own it. But it almost feels like bragging when you own it.
Yeah.
You're like, I did this and I did that. And so that, I think, for me, was something difficult to sort of get over. Still hard to get over.
That norm of like, oh, you shouldn't gloat. Like,
Yes.
and
It's not even gloating. It's just like showing off your successes. Like, why wouldn't you share your successes and wins? But we're not in a society where we're supposed to do that, right? Like, I mean, I know on Instagram, everybody talks about all the good things they're doing, but it just happens that way. It's not like, I think because it's slightly removed. I mean, if somebody started talking about how great they were and how awesome this was and that was, like, most people were like, oh, she's so self-centered, or she's so whatever. I don't know, like arrogant.
It's a balance. It's a balance, right? But I feel like people don't balance it about like talking about others. Like they don't talk about themselves enough. And there's a way to do it that is not obnoxious.
No, of course.
Just believing in the belief.
I mean, I think that the way to do it, for me, I think the way to do it is like, I always think I'm only telling you this because I'm actually bringing value to this conversation. I'm not telling you because I want you to just, I'm not looking for your validation. Actually, that's the bottom line. I think on our first episode, we talked about external validation. So when you talk about your wins, it's not because I'm looking for validation. It's more like I'm sharing it because it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. I say that all the time. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. That's the big.
So I think that might be part of the difference. Anything else?
No, but didn't get to really hear about your in how you felt you've breaking the mold in your life.
I mean, in theory, on paper, I have done everything according to the way I'm supposed to do it. My grandfather told me when I was 3 or 4 years old that I should be a doctor. I just decided I wanted to be a doctor. It happened to work out for me. But I went to undergrad in Montreal. My parents moved to Texas. I refused to move to Texas. That's how I ended up there. Then I pretty much bombed my first year of undergrad. I was away from home. I was young, whatever, all the things, right? Didn't know how to study. Kind of checked out a little bit. And then one of my friends went to medical school in Ireland, and I was like, that sounds like an option. So I just applied to see if I could get in, and I got in. So again, just sort of this like off the beaten path, non-linear path. And maybe it was like breaking away from my own mold. So, I grew up in Regina. I was born and raised there. I just assumed I was going to do what everybody else did, go to the U of R for 2 years and then go to medical school. Like at that time in the 90s, you didn't even have to do your MCAT. I was, near the top of my class. And so I didn't think it was difficult. Like everybody did it, so I could do it. But because my parents moved to Texas, all of a sudden it was like, wait, there's other options. And I didn't really think of it as a negative thing because I was dying to move to Montreal. But I was like, oh crap, like this is uncharted territory. Like I have no idea what I'm going to do next. Again, I say it happened to work out, but like I probably made some decisions. Like, I think at 19 and 20, the decisions you make are not super well calculated. So I don't take full ownership of them. I can blame my friend Sid for the reason that I went to Dublin, but also like I met my husband there and then we moved back to the States. We moved to Kentucky. My kids were born there. I didn't even know where Kentucky was at the time. Now I'm in Texas. Like it was like this super detour scenic route, and to be honest, I did not own it. Even some days now I'm like, well, yeah, it sounds great on paper. Like people always come into my office like, wow, Dr. Kumar, you're so interesting. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just a prairie girl. I'm like, it sounds interesting, but I'm like, it turned out great. And I guess part of me wishes that I had owned it each step of the way. But maybe it wouldn't have turned out this way if I had owned it. Like if I was that conscious every step of the way either. Sometimes you have to just like go with it. And you're like, oh, I'm moving to Ireland. Oh, okay. Sure. Like at 21, you're like, why not? So
it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah, like I didn't actually realize Ireland was its own country when I was 20 years old. I was a very sheltered prairie girl.
Did you have like growing up, did you have that self-assuredness? Like you said, your grandpa and like your parents really
what? I just hung my beliefs on him. Like I think I borrowed his belief about me and it was a fact. So I don't even have memories really of like people questioning my decisions. I mean, of course my parents, but like, but the only memory I have is one friend in undergrad who said like, oh my gosh, if you don't get into med school, what's your plan B? And I was like, plan B? I don't have a plan B. Then I was like panicking because I didn't have a plan B.
Yeah.
So I definitely was not confident on my own accord, but I was confident because my grandfather was confident. And I think that is also something important. We talk about this in coaching about borrowed beliefs. Like if I believe in you, I don't believe in you just because. I believe in you because of reasons. And sometimes if you have to borrow my belief to get through and get to the next step, go for it.
Totally.
So
yeah.
Sometimes I have to borrow other people's beliefs even now, right? Like, okay, hopefully this is gonna be okay. Like people are like, your kids are gonna be fine. I'm like, oh my God, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna survive? And everyone's like, everyone's kids survive. One step at a time. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I like that. Borrow someone's belief. And if you're not around people that believe in you, find people that believe, right? And that's
real
another
people.
topic we talk about on one of our episodes. So
go find real people that have real belief in you for real reasons.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing, Amita.
Thank you. All right. I think we're going to call it a wrap. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.